Everybody. Hopefully everybody's doing good today. There we go. Just some confirmation in the chat that audio and visuals are good. Hopefully we're good. I would say I wasn't able to finish my lunch, so I might take a few bites here and there because my brain needs some food here. Mr. Cole, thanks for coming on. Mr. Francis, a chilly night in UK. I could take a chilly night, and it's hot. Actually, it has been cooling down. It's only 72 degrees right now, which, what is that for the rest of you in the world? 22 degrees. So it's pretty nice temperature right now, actually. Although some of you, 22 is probably pretty warm for where you're at right now, right? Excellent. So, Chris Dave. How's it going, Chris? Fernando, thanks for coming on. Dominic, glad you got your conference ticket, Dominic. Can't wait to see you there. And why isn't everyone following in Dominic's footsteps, right? Weaver Space Conference coming up next month, October 22nd to the 24th. So make sure you get your ticket. Go to summit.weavers.space. I may have one more video to leak out to you guys later this week from last year's conference. It's going to be a cool one. So you can guys get a sneak peek on kind of the awesome talks that our speakers have in store for you guys this year. Can't wait. It's going to be a good one. Okay, Sarah, you haven't joined our Hangouts on Fridays for a long time. Got to pop your head in there. Got to see what's going on. So today was kind of like most live streams, we're kind of spurred by a conversation I had someone. And I've seen a few people, like trying to implement, let's say, Foundation 6 or Total CMS, and they follow the steps and some things aren't working. And it turns out like some very fundamental things are sometimes missed. So I thought it would be fun to basically start from scratch. So I have set up a domain. I purchased a domain. I have a ton of domains that I could potentially use because I have a lot of domains that aren't currently being used. So I'm going to pick a domain. We're going to set up hosting for it. I haven't done anything. Okay, so all I have is a domain name. We're going to set up hosting for it. We're going to set up a new project file. I'm not going to spend much time. I'll be honest. We're not going to spend much time designing a website, right? It's just most about the setup process. Okay. Now, I do have to say that I use, the tools and hosting services that I use are going to be different probably than what you use. So mileage may vary. Obviously, the steps are going to be a little bit different. I'm a huge fan of Cloudflare. So I do use Cloudflare for as my registrar and as my DNS provider. So we're going to be dipping our toes into Cloudflare just a little bit. I'm not going to go through all of Cloudflare. I have some live streams that go over Cloudflare. So we're going to set stuff up in Cloudflare. I'm going to be using I have multiple hosting accounts. I'm going to be using one on my DreamHost account. So we'll go into DreamHost. I'm going to set up the hosting it for a domain. We're going to do it all. Okay. So yeah, and then we're going to start a completely blank project file. We're going to go through how I set up a new completely blank project file, some of the settings that I recommend you change and make sure that you update. And then we're going to publish. And then at that time, we're going to be done, right? Because again, we're not going to really be designing a site today. It's mostly about the setup process for a completely new project file. Okay. And once we get into the Rapweaver side of things, you can definitely make sure that, you take notes about what settings and look at your existing project files. And there are these settings that I'm going to review can be fixed, right? So it's something that you can do afterwards. So let's, without further ado, let's go ahead and get started. All right, here we go. Let's, oops, don't need that. That. bring it over here. There we go. All right, so first off, let's go ahead and let's go to Cloudflare, and we're going to go to DreamHost. Okay, let's log into both. Okay, thank you very much. Over here. We are going to set up jacobworkman.com. So this is Cloudflare. Again, I love Cloudflare. I'm not going to really go up how to do it. I use Cloudflare as my registrar, so I purchase all my domains from them now. I moved all my domains over to them, and the reason is they have zero markup on domains. So what they pay for a domain, you pay for the domain. So I save a few $100s a year because of Cloudflare. So thank you very much, Cloudflare. Okay. As of right now, Jacob Workman has 0 DNS records. Absolutely none. Okay. So we're going to have to rectify that. And I know, really quick, I'm just going to go over to Joe. I'm going to use the same server that my sandbox server is on. So I'm just going to go into here and just copy this IP address right here. Okay. And we're going to go back to Jacob Workman. All right. So I'm going to add 2 records in here. And this is DNS. And in DNS, you need to, now if your domain is already on your hosting provider and you don't have 2 different things like I do, this is going to be simple because your host is going to set this for you automatically. But I need to do it. So I'm going to go ahead, and for this, I'm going to set my A record. The default one's just, you're going to leave this as blank, and you're going to put in the IP address of my web server, which is this one. And we're going to click save. Oh, I guess we need an @ symbol. Or you can do jacobworkman.com. Save. Okay. So the root jacobworkman.com goes to the IP address. And just for fun, I'm also going to add a www record. So I'm going to go www. Now, if you don't want www, then you don't need to do this. But I just figure I'd add it in here because I know a lot of people like it. So there we go. Now DNS works. So now Cloudflare, its DNS propagation is pretty darn good. So hopefully by the time I set up the hosting for this website, it will all work. Okay. So, and we should be done on Cloudflare. I shouldn't need it anymore. All I needed to do was add the DNS records. Again, I'm not going to go through any of the other settings. I'm just going to leave them as the default. Okay. I'm going to go over here. Now, part of this, it's saying that we don't have an MX record. So jacobworkman.com doesn't have any mail, and that's okay for right now. We're worried about websites right now. So we're going to go over to my hosting account. We're going to go to manage domains. Okay. And I'm going to add hosting for a new domain. So I click on that. Domain to host is jacobworkman.com. .com. All right. And my host, DreamHost, has the ability to just say, do you want to leave it alone? So www and normal work. Do you want to automatically add the www? Do you want to automatically remove the www? So that's always a big thing for people. I'm just going to add the www. Why not? Okay. User, I'm going to run this as me for right now. Use PHP. Let's use 8, whatever. The reason I picked this domain is eventually I want my son to be able to start making his website. So, I thought that would be fun. Now, DreamHost has some integration with Cloudflare. I like managing all that myself. So, now we're going to click fully host this domain. Voila. Now it says here, it's saying that make sure, because they know that DreamHost isn't hosting this. So it's saying, make sure that you set the DNS records to these. But again, I already have all my DNS set up, so I'm good. Okay. All I need to do is is make sure that IP address was set on in the DNS record. So we're good to go there. Okay. And just for fun, let's go ahead and let's try to visit it. That took a lot less time than I expected it to, actually. All right. So Jacob Workman. So it worked. It took us to, this is the default like DreamHost thing. There's nothing there. Okay. So there we go. JacobWorkman.com. Now, one thing we'll notice is, voila, we do not have HTTPS. So let's go fix that because that's important. We want to make sure. So in DreamHost, I'm just going to click on this HTTPS not secure. And we're going to go ahead and do Let's Encrypt free. If your hosting service wants to charge you something, like you don't need to pay $15 a year or whatever for a certificate. Use the free one. It's free. Use it. So I'm going to select this certificate. Okay. And that normally takes a few minutes. Okay. You'll see somewhere here, order processing. Okay. So there we go. Order processing for jacobworkman.com. We'll leave that up. Hopefully it comes back. But we should be able to go to HTTPS, and it does work because of Cloudflare, right? Now, yeah. So let's leave it at that. I was debating whether or not I should dive in. I don't want to go down the rabbit hole of this. So like if you're using Cloudflare and you do have an SSL certificate on your server, go ahead and click this as full strict. Okay. So once this certificate is valid, let's see, it's still order processing. So once certificate was installed on jacobworkman.com, you should go in Cloudflare and set your SSL rules from flexible to be full. Flexible essentially means it doesn't require that your actual web server supports it. So if you look at this little graphic, your browser, Cloudflare, and Cloudflare to your server. Flexible means essentially that the connection from the browser to Cloudflare is secure, but the connection from Cloudflare to your server is not. So if you were to go to full or full strict, then the entire chain is encrypted. So I definitely recommend doing full strict once your domain has a certificate. Okay. But yeah, there we go. Oh, there we go. JacobWorkman.com is almost there. Okay. So it's saying that we now have a website. Cool. Let's see if that certificate's there just for fun. And there it is. Let's encrypt. We have a certificate. I definitely don't need this anymore. And over here, I can go full strict because, yeah, we need that. There we go. So now we have a full encrypted connection all the way to our server. Done. We're not going to do anything else in Cloudflare. I don't want to go down that rabbit hole. Cloudflare is awesome, though. Okay. So here's DreamHost. So this is our default page. Let's go ahead and I am going to, another thing before we set up RapWeaver, I always like to set up like a little connection for it inside. I use Transmit, but whatever your favorite FTP app is, right? So I'm just going to duplicate this Sandbox one because it's technically the same connection. JacobWorkman.com. Okay. And let's just quickly edit this. And actually, one second. You know what? I think I did something. Just because I don't want to go and change this later because I know there's a setting that I want to potentially manage. So we go here, manage domains. Or I want to edit. Yeah, shoot. So I want to do a web directory. I like to save mine under a websites folder. So this is just something that I do in my, I always, here's something. I always save the website. Okay. This is something I should have called out. If we look here, I got to use these little tools. I forgot here. All right, this guy right here. So I save all my websites under home username. So my username's, my username. Then I have a websites folder, and then I have a folder for each website. Okay. This is very, very, very important. Okay. Because a lot of hosts do something bad. Okay. And I'll go onto my server and show you what a lot of hosts do. And one thing I always do is I name the folder that my website's going to be in the name of the website. That way there is no, some default to public HTML, which a lot of times you look at that and you go, public HTML. And if you're hosting websites, a lot of different websites, you go, public HTML for what? I don't know. Right? So yeah, I store everything under our websites folder, and then under that folder is a folder for each website domain. Okay. So I'm going to go ahead and save that. All right, cool. Save that. So now let's go ahead and this should be. All right. So obviously, I recommend you try to use SFTP for your connections. Okay. Again, this is Transmit. You could use whatever FTP app you have, whether it's CyberDuck or Forklift or whatever else. Okay. There's a bunch of them out there. I think Transmit's just the best. It's the bee's knees, I think. I don't know. I've used it for a long time. So always use SFTP if you can. Okay. It's just more reliable. Some hosting companies don't support SFTP, which is unfortunate. And for me, that's a red flag. And I would say you need to find a new hosting provider. But you can use FTP. Okay. I strongly recommend you use SFTP if you can, though. It's just going to be a more reliable connection. And that's true in Transmit and RapidWeaver. Okay. So then you put in your server, your username, and your password. In Transmit, I'm not sure about other ones. I have the ability to put in the root URL for this website. So this directory is a part of the website, this domain. And then here's the full path to where my website folder is. Okay, I'm going to click save. And if we double click on that, we're there. All right, so it took me to the website folder. And this is anything that goes inside this folder will now be the website for jacobworkman.com. Okay. Now let me just show you, if I go to my home folder, I do have a lot of junk in here, but if we go to websites, under websites, you'll see that I have a folder for every website here. Okay. Again, this is a great organization tip. There is zero doubt on where joeworkman.net lives. There it is. There's zero doubt where sandbox.joeworkman.net is, because it's right there. Okay. And one cardinal rule, never, ever, ever host one website inside the same folder of another website. So I know a lot of hosting companies out there, they will try to create like a folder under your main website for a subdomain or for a different website. Don't do that. Make them all at the same level. Make sure that all your websites are, again, nicely labeled and stuff like that. Your host should be able to do this. Okay? Hopefully. I should look at the chat, see if there's any chats there. Okay, and one thing that's very cool about Transmit, just to say, earlier I put in the URL. So like if I go to, let's go back to jacobworkman.com. Where is it? Here. Okay. DreamHost puts in a GIF for us, right? So if I were to right click and say copy URL, okay, we would notice that if I paste that, it gives me the URL to that file. Super, super useful. Okay, especially if you're uploading things to your web server and you just want to right click, say copy URL, and then you're going to paste it inside some sort of stack or setting or somewhere, right? So yeah, there we go. Boom. Obviously that GIF doesn't really work. It's just the default one. You should use your own anyway. But just to let you know, that is a super uber cool feature. Okay. So we're pretty much done setting up the server and whatnot. Now we're ready to dive into RapidWeaver. Let's go ahead and I'm going to open up RapidWeaver. Obsessing about data privacy, removing all tracking pixels, even Google Analytics. Is the hosting company a concern for data harvesting at the server level? Some, yes. You get what you pay for. I know some extremely cheap hosting solutions. They do inject, various code and analytics into a web page potentially. If you have a host that you discover does that, never ever use them ever. You should never have a host do that. Okay. I've been using DreamHost for, 15 years, something like that. I enjoy them. If you want, I can give you my referral code. Also check out ChiliDog. He's great. I always like to promote Greg. He's good. He does good work and he has great customer service. Okay. If you do want to check out some alternatives to ChiliDog hosting, I think DreamHost is great. I think if we go to, what is it? I think here, here we go. I'll put this in the chat. Here's my referral for DreamHost. I think it gets you like a couple months for free or a discounted rate or something like that. I don't really remember. It does get you something. Okay. And I think I get a few dollars too. So, if you are looking for a good hosting company, DreamHost is awesome. One thing I love about them, if you notice their admin area, they don't use the traditional cPanel. Their custom cPanel is like off the chain. Okay. It's really, really good. So I like that a lot. It's really easy, very user-friendly. I think it's just the bee's knees. Okay. Okay. So, there we go. Plug about DreamHost. And if you want ChiliDog, check out chilidoghosting.com. Again, Greg is a great guy. He's also another developer in the RapidWeaver ecosystem, and he gives world-class customer support. So check out Greg. Okay, we are starting a completely new project file, as I promised. So I'm just going to Command-Shift-N, gives us a new project file. And just for fun, I'm going to add in a Stacks page just so that we have a page. And that Stacks does its thing, loads. And for fun, we're just going to give it home. Actually, some things we could have done before we added this page. All right. Let me just I'll go back to that. Okay. So we have a new project file. Let's just save this because it's our blank project file. I'm just going to save it to my desktop. We'll just call this live stream. Or, well, no, I'll call it. Guess what? When I have a project file for a website, guess what I name it? I name it the website. So I'm going to name this Jacob Workman. Normally instead of dot, I do a dash com. Okay. So jacobworkman.com. Boom. There we go. Now, if I look at this project file in my system, I have no questions about what it is because it's the domain name. Okay. That's just my own thing. You can do whatever you want there. I don't really care. Okay. So setting up a new project file. What do we need to do? So first off, we're going to want to go through some of the settings. So we go to general. You can obviously, I'm not going to worry about changing the title or slogan and all that jazz or your email address and stuff like that. This is the first one that's very important that a lot of people overlook. Okay. And it is the web address. Oops, not that one. I already had it on my clipboard. You want to name this your website. Now, a word of caution here. This has to be the name of the website, especially if you're using something like Total CMS. This setting is vital. It is key. Okay? This needs to be the exact location of the website that you're publishing to. Okay? It doesn't mean you can put in the URL of what this website will eventually be. It needs to be what it is now. Okay? So if I were publishing this, let's say I'm working on a client site And obviously I don't want to, let's say jacobworkman.com actually existed, and I want to do work on sandbox.jacobworkman.com. Okay. Well, I can't have this as jacobworkman.com. It has to be the exact domain that I'm working on right now. Okay. And if you're publishing to a subfolder, well, guess what? This URL needs to be the exact URL to where you are publishing. So if you're publishing this to a subfolder, which I don't recommend, I recommend using subdomains instead of a subfolder. Okay. But if you are publishing to a subfolder, which is possible, you need to make sure that that subfolder is also in the website address. So wherever your homepage goes, that's where your URL needs to be. Okay, I can't stress how many people skip over this setting, and it is vital for complex applications like Total CMS, okay, and other things. I think Video Wall as well. Like the more complex things that really require server integration and, you know, stuff like that, it needs to have the website address, or else things won't work. Okay. The rest of this stuff is just superfluous. Whether or not you want to use your Twitter account in here, what your site language and all that jazz, obviously you want to set that stuff up. Okay. If you have a site logo, if you're using something like Foundation, you're probably not going to use the banner. But yeah. Let's see, web icons. A lot of people skip this as well. Okay. Definitely make sure you add all your icons into here, right? So I can go ahead and I don't think this one's big enough, but if you add, what's cool, if you add in something to the iPhone Retina, it'll ask you, do you want to auto generate the icons for everything else based on that other one? And just say, yep, voila. It does it all for you. Pretty cool. And the Safari pin tab stuff, that needs to be like an SVG file. Normally it should be a one color SVG thing. Okay. But you can drag and drop an SVG file into there. Okay. Here I dragged in, I'm not sure how that will actually work, to be honest with you. You should have a monochrome, like a single color SVG. Okay. And this color wheel here will define the color, the main color of that SVG as well. Okay. So there we go. Most of the time you use white. That's what most things do. All right. So I do see a lot of people, I'll even admit I forget to do this too. Okay. But again, all we're doing when we set up a new project is I'm just going down these settings down the side. Okay. Advanced. So this is the first thing that I think, I wish there was a global preference for this. Okay. I recommend that you set your default extension from HTML to PHP. Oops, PHP. So the reason for this, okay, is we'll show you in a little bit, but it can provide issues for, you know, a lot of times if you add a stack to a page that requires PHP, it helps you and it renames your page to be PHP for you. But the problem is if you started with an HTML page and the stack changes it to a PHP page and you publish, you now have both HTML and PHP versions on your server. Okay. Now, a lot of my stacks, such as like SEO Helper, I have some built-in tools to help you clean that up from within RapidWeaver. But a lot of times you'll have to actually FTP to your server and delete the file that you don't want. Okay. But if you automatically start your project off, so every new page gets PHP, then you'll never have to worry about that issue ever again. And there's really very little to pretty much zero downside to doing this. Okay. There's virtually zero downside to doing this. So there's only headache saving and time saving by changing your default extension to be PHP. Okay. The rest of this stuff, leave it. Please don't change this. File links are like some people will change these things. Just leave it as relative to page. That will give you the most compatibility across everything. Just some weird stuff happens from here and there. There's some unpredictable behavior sometimes when you change this. Okay. So just keep it relative to page, unless you really, really know what you're doing and you have valid reasons on doing it. I actually wished RapidWeaver would just get rid of this setting altogether. But anyway. Okay. The rest I think are good. Whether or not you want sitemaps and consolidate CSS files, you definitely want generate cache busting links. Okay. I'm going to do an entire live stream in the future about cache busting links. Okay. But just for right now, leave that on. And I definitely recommend site resources copy into document is the most safe thing. That's the default value. If you have an existing project that it might say leave in place if it was generated from a very old version of RapidWeaver, I strongly recommend you copy it into the document. That way, every image and file that you add to the project will be copied into the actual project file. So there you go. Hey, privacy. I'll be honest. I don't recommend you use this stuff. I would say like they have this built-in privacy message thing. There are a lot of great stacks out there that are better. I would use that. And this anonymized request to third-party servers, if you turn this on, it will break a lot of things, such as if you're loading font files from a font service, this will stop those from working. Okay. So especially if you're using a lot of like potentially some third-party stuff, this will break that. Okay. And I recommend just leaving it off. But if you really know what you're doing and you're super conscious that you're only ever loading things from your own server, you can turn that on, I guess. But keep it in the back of your mind. If something breaks because the browser won't load something, it could be because of this. Okay. And if you're curious, this just adds a particular meta tag into the head. I forget the exact meta tag. It just adds a meta tag that tells the browser to be like super, super strict about what resources it loads. Okay. Code. This isn't really something you should add to every project, but this is obviously, code that you can add to all your pages across your entire project. Okay. Nothing really here to change. Master styles. That's not really anything there's no real standardization here. Notes. If you have notes, I've seen some people, I'll be honest, I haven't really used this. It's just like a generic notes pad for your project. And I've seen people put in a lot of information about their clients here, maybe storing some information about their client and stuff like that, so that it's easy accessible from within the project. None of the data here is published, but it's a cool thing to have. Okay. The last thing is publishing. So we need to be able to publish our website. So, what you do, obviously you would set up your username and password. You can also, choose other methods. I'm going to cancel out of that. Oops. I wish there was a way to add from bookmarks. So I already have a bookmark to my server set up. And by default in a new project file, RapidWeaver doesn't have the ability to add from bookmarks. So you have to add a dummy one and then you can add from bookmarks. So I'm going to add, this one from bookmarks. Okay. And, then I'm going to remove this one and then we're going to update the, now sometimes people get confused in terms of what folder, they can use. A lot of times what I can do is I'm going to click browse. And what this does is it actually connects to your server. Then you can browse to the folder. So I'm going to go to websites, Joe Workman websites, and I'm going to click Jacob Workman, and I'm going to say choose. Just change the path. Okay. So, and what that does is that puts the exact path here. So if you're confused on what the path is, okay, and you want to make sure that this setting is correct, maybe you're publishing to the wrong folder. Okay. It could be, click the browse button. That will FTP into your server, assuming your username and password are correct. Okay. And then you can pick. Okay. Now, there's a website address setting here. We have the option. We can set this. Okay. Essentially, this is an override for the setting that we have inside the general settings. So, I'll be honest, most of the time what I'll do is, actually, let's fix this because I changed it and never changed it back. Okay. So publishing. I can go ahead and by default, if I leave this blank, it will use what is inside the general settings. But if I put something in here, it will overwrite what is in the general settings. Now, what's the point of that? Like, why? Okay. Well, if you never knew, right, you can add multiple publishing destinations to RapidWeaver. So like, for example, I'm going to create a new destination. Let's just add a local folder. Okay. Just for fun. So now I can be like, this is DreamHost local folder. So I'm going to name my publishing destinations. Okay. So this one publishes to DreamHost. This one publishes to my local folder. Obviously, you can choose a folder and all that jazz to publish locally. Okay. Now, you'll notice when you go to the publish button, you can choose where you want to publish. Okay. So, for example, let's say you have 2 servers set up. Okay. Let's say I have one is Sandbox and the other one is jakeworkman.com. Okay. So let's say when I publish to, I guess here, let's do a real life scenario. Add from bookmarks. We'll just do this one. And maybe I follow my name, that my same naming convention up here is. Okay. So here, let's say I have 2 hosting accounts set up. And when I publish to this folder, it goes to jakeworkman.com. But let's say when I publish to a Sandbox folder, the web address is going to be different. Okay. So I'm going to paste, I'm going to do HTTPS. And there we go. So this is interesting. When I go ahead and in the publishing settings, I publish to a particular account, it will customize the website address. So let's say you have a testing server and a production server. Okay. I know a lot of people don't use that, but it's pretty cool. It's very interesting. And I think it's a really solid workflow. Okay. And I actually like, having the domain set up in there so that there's no questions. And it shows up here in the toolbar as well. So if you just click the publish button, it's gonna tell you which one it's going to use, or you can go ahead and swap that. And there you go. I like that. I'll be honest, I'd never done that before. Put the domain up in here. I like it. You should do that. Very cool. Okay. I didn't set up sandbox.jakeworkman.com, so I'm not going to worry about that. Okay. But that's a cool workflow. But I have set up this. Now let's look at some other publishing settings. Like I said with transmit, SFTP. Try to use SFTP, not SFTPS or FTPS or FTP. SFTP. Okay. Now, depending on your host, mine is 6 works fine. But sometimes if you notice that when you publish, it bombs, try to lower this setting until maybe it works. Okay. Obviously, what this means is how many files can be uploaded simultaneously. And that's going to greatly depend on your hosting company. Okay. With DreamHost, I've never had any issues, always using SFTP and lightning fast uploads. Okay. But depending on maybe your internet connection or your hosting company, you might need to go down to 1 or 2. And what that means is that's the number of simultaneous uploads that you can have. Okay. So there we go. So that kind of deals with publishing settings. Okay. Now let's go ahead and, I'm just going to add in some, or I'll just add in some markdown on this page. Okay. Let's go ahead and publish. And, let's go ahead and open up Safari. jakeworkman.com, and there's our website. Yay! Okay. Now, earlier I want to bring home a topic that I talked about earlier. This page is called index.html. Oops, if I know how to type. Okay. And if we look at the server, let's go to the server. Okay. So these are all the files that were uploaded. Okay. Here's the index.html file. Okay. Now, let's say, for example, I'm going to go ahead and add in a stack that requires PHP. How about my new QR code stack? There we go. All right. So I'm going to add QR code. And it should have. Oh, interesting. That may be a bug in my new QR code stack. I might have forgot to check that it requires PHP, so it doesn't change. Let's go ahead and let's find something else. What's the stack that requires PHP? Oh, agent. What agent? Boop. There it goes. I just had to. Oh, I wonder if QR code did that. You just had to exit the page and go back. So if you see it renamed the page to be index.php. Okay. Here, let's go ahead. So we have something on the page to look at. Let's add my QR coder back on there. So let's publish. So I published this. Okay. And if I refresh my page, well, guess what? I'm not seeing my new content. What's going on? Well, that's because if we look on the server, we have both index.php and index.html files. And by default, if a web server sees both, it will serve up the HTML file first. Okay. So what we need to do is just go ahead and delete that file. And now if I refresh the site, there we go. There's our nice fancy QR code with the page. Again, I'm not going to go into designing a website here. This is more about the setup process of a project file. Okay. And just to show you now that I set this setting in the advanced, if I go ahead and add a new page, let's go ahead and add a new stacks page. Okay. You'll see that the default name is index.php. Okay. By the way, I know I've probably said this 1,000 times. Just leave your names, your page names set to be index.html or index.php. Okay. Don't change them. Just leave it as index. Again, it's just another thing that will make your life easier. It makes your URLs look prettier as well, because here I have jacobworkman.com. I don't need to have, page.php on there or something like that, right? You don't have to. Now, there are some cases such as Total CMS blog posts and stuff like that where it might be recommended to not use index. But as of right now, I think that's like the only time I would recommend not doing it. Always use index. Leave the customization to the folder names. Okay, so like if this was an about page, you would do folder/about index.php, right? And let's just add that so we can publish. So now if I go to jacobworkman.com/about, it takes me to the page, right? And that URL just looks nicer. Okay. I know a lot of things are going away from trying to show you the URL, but what hurts us from having a URL that looks nice as well? Okay. Cool. Let me see if there's any. You mentioned that the code Google Analytics needs to go in the code body section. You should mention the Google Analytics should go in the code head section. It depends, Jody. I prefer. So Google is going to tell you that you should put your analytics code in the head. Okay. They're going to tell you that. Because they want it in the head, because technically it will load before your content on the page, and they're more likely to get hit if it's at the top of the page. But if you put it in the head of the page, I've personally found out that it slows down your web page. Okay, it can, and it does. Okay, so that's why I put it in the body, which puts it at the very bottom of the page. Does that mean like analytics will it affect some of the metrics? maybe slightly some of the, like in the Google Analytics, you have like some page speed stuff. It's possible that some of those might be a few microseconds different. Okay. But hey, I've stopped personally adding Google Analytics to my site. Okay. Especially because a lot of browsers just block it now. So if browsers are blocking it, what's the point? And to be honest, when's the last time you logged into your Google Analytics and actually analyzed the data? Okay. If you're like me, probably haven't. So again, I say, what's the point? If you're not really using the data, what's the point? So just something to think about, food for thought. I do urge you to put it in the body, because you want your webpage, you want your content to show up as fast as possible. And why would you put Google ahead of your own content? Okay. Especially when it's something that you're probably not really going to look at very often. So it's not really that important. So there we go. I recommend putting it in the body, not in the head, no matter what Google tells you to put it. Because I know my website better than they do. Okay. Cool. Let's see. I think I covered all the questions. We covered some privacy stuff. We covered the analytics code. Yeah, there we go. And I finished early today, guys. It's only 12:15. Look at that. And I even tried to elongate some of my storytelling a little bit. So I probably could have done this a hell of a lot faster. Yeah. Hopefully you guys enjoyed that. Yeah. Hopefully, again, Weaverspace Summit. Guys, join us, summit.weavers.space. Get your tickets. They coming up less than a month away. We have some great speakers. Check it out. The schedule's right there on the homepage. Yeah, you can check out the great speakers that we have coming up this year. I'm really excited about that. Hope you guys got a lot out of today. And yeah, it was good. Hopefully James Alton Thomas is in here. This was kind of just for you, James, just for you. So yeah, hope that helped you out. Hope that helped everybody else out. And we will see you next week on the live stream, or maybe on Fridays at our Hangouts on Fridays. Check us out. Go to Weaverspace/events. All the way at the bottom is our Hangouts section. You can click on the link there, get access to our Hangouts. 1:30 p.m. Pacific, essentially 1 hour from right now, but on Friday. Hopefully we'll see you then. And yeah, got some cool stuff coming. Quick Flip Floors coming. I just quietly released QR Coder on the Weaverspace community. I'll probably get emails out as soon as I get the videos done for that, probably tomorrow or so. Okay. And cool. Take care, everyone. Talk to you next week.